Hello YouTubers, RogueMonkeyJr here, and today we are going to do an updated version of settings and key bindings. It is long overdue as my previous video is getting pretty old, and I have gotten a new keyboard first of all, and redone some of my key bindings and settings, so there's no better time than the end of 2020 to remake that video. So before we start off, if you enjoy it, hitting the like button really helps out the channel, and you can even maybe consider subscribing. But without further ado, let's jump straight into this. Alright, so starting out in the gameplay settings, so there is a large amount of settings that you can modify here to your personal taste. So we're going to go through some of them that I actually changed just to make my life a little bit easier. So the interact prompt style, I have it set to compact. I find default is just too obtrusive on the screen, so I have it set to compact. Button hits, I mean, once you play the game so much, you don't really need button hints telling you what you should and shouldn't do. It's all going to be muscle memory at that point, so I have it set to off. Crosshair damage feedback, so I have the X with the shield icon. So this means that it shows an X on the crosshair when I get a hit, and it also shows an X on the crosshair and an icon indicating shield level, which I find is very, very useful. On top of getting the sound notification when you break someone's shield, you also get the visual cue of said shield level. For damage number, I have it set to floating, so it shows one number for each damage event, so I can show you what that looks like right now. So if I pick up a gun here, I have an R301. So as you can see, even if I get multiple hits on that target, it still only shows one number per damage event instead of having it set to a dish, so all the damage adds up and shows you a single number. So if you're the type of person that can't do math quick in your head and you want to know how much you did damage total, then that can help you out if you have it set to stacking. But you can fiddle around with this and see what you prefer. So ping opacity, I have it set to default. You could set it to faded if you find that default is just clutters up your screen too much. Obituaries, very, very useful to have on, so it shows the kill feed basically, so you can see if your teammates have downed people, if they've actually finished them off or anything of the sorts. Minimap rotation, I have it set to off. So the minimap rotation, what it does is instead of you turning on the minimap would rotate with you. But for me, keeping my bearings is easier if the minimap just stays still and my character moves on the minimap. That way, if I call out a location or somebody calls out a location, it's easier for me to tell if it's always in the same direction as opposed to having the minimap rotate. Weapon auto cycle on empty. So what this does is when a weapon is completely empty, that means you have no leftover ammo in your bag, it auto cycles to your next weapon. So for example, my R301 here has 3 bullets left. So if I finish off these 3 bullets, it would auto cycle to my P2020. Now again, this is personal preference. You can do it manually, and if you do, I mean, most of the time muscle memory will kick in, and when your weapon is empty, you're gonna have the reflex to switch back to your second weapon. Auto sprint, this is awful to have on. Never have this on. It even says it in the setting. So on always sprint when you move forward. Sprinting delays your shots and reduces control of fine movement. So let's just put it on just to show you guys an example. So every time you press W or your forward key, you would jump, you would start sprinting right away, but it always delays how long it takes before you can start shooting, as opposed to having it just set off. And I find it gives you a lot more control if you decide when to sprint as opposed to always sprinting, because sometimes you don't always want to sprint. Sometimes you want to walk to reduce sound, or simply being able to do stuff like wall jumping and crouch sliding, or bunny hopping. So I would absolutely have this set to off. Double tap to sprint, I don't think it's really interesting. I don't personally see the point in double tapping to sprint. I'd rather just hit the shift button. When I hit it, I sprint. Incoming damage feedback, this is just giving you visual feedback of where the damage is coming from. Taking damage closes death box menu. I don't know why this is set to on. I usually have it set to off. So that means when you're in a death box, if you take damage, it won't close the death box menu. but having it set to on can be frustrating if you're trying to get some extra ammo or swap out your shield. For example, if you're in a caustic ultimate, taking damage from that ultimate just keeps on closing the death box menu, which is super annoying. The hop-up pop-up, which is a funny name, determines if the pop-up UI element will show when a hop-up is attached to a weapon. So that just shows you if you have a hop-up or not. Streamer mode, that's pretty self-explanatory. Anonymous mode, so this anonymizes the display of player's name in the champion presentation, obituary, and other locations of living opponent. So just something to reduce stream sniping again. Performance display, this shows you a bunch of useful information on the top right hand part of your screen. So as you can see in the top right hand, you can see the FPS, the latency, the amount of packets in, out, the choke, and the loss. So that is up to you if you want to have it on or off. Continuing here, club invites, this is new, so you can have it set to enable or disable depending on whether or not you want people in your club to invite you. There used to be a crossplay option here. I don't know why they removed it. So you used to be able to enable or disable crossplay when they introduced the beta. It's not there anymore, which I find odd, but they might be stress testing crossplay. I tried to reach out to some devs at Respawn and I haven't gotten any news back, and I even tried to go to Reddit and ask the question and nothing there either. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens with crossplay. All right, so moving on to the mouse and keyboard part of the video. So mouse sensitivity, I will more than likely make a complete video on how to tune your mouse sensitivity properly for the way you aim, how you hold your mouse, calculating to make sure you have the same sensitivity from game to game. It's quite a big topic, so I'm just gonna tell you what my DPI is on my mouse and what my mouse sensitivity is. So as you can see in game, it's 3, and I'm using 400 DPI on my mouse. As for the ADS mouse sensitivity, I have it set to multiplier 1, and I don't have per optic ADS sensitivity turned on. I have it set to off, so no matter what optic I'm using, it's still the same sensitivity. Mouse acceleration, I hate mouse acceleration, and again, that'll be for another video, but I have it set to off. Mouse invert, that's pretty self-explanatory. Lighting effects, so if you have a Razer Chroma RGB mouse or keyboard for that matter, or I think Logitech also offers this, you can have it set to on so that the game can control the lighting on your mouse. Now the problem I was having with this is it would often just simply disconnect my mouse, and I'd have to unplug it and replug it in my USB ports on the back of my PC to get it to work again. So it was just a nightmare to have on, and you don't really want a game hooking into your mouse to change the lighting. It's personal preference, and I hated that it kept disconnecting, so I just turned this off completely. I just have my standard lighting to whatever I have it set in the Razer Synapse software. So movement keys, obviously forward, back, left, and right, WASD. That's pretty standard. Sprint is left shift. Jump I have set to obviously space. I don't have any other keybinds for jump. Now crouch, you can have a toggle and hold key. Now my hold key, I used to have it to left control, but I changed it. Sorry, my toggle used to be on control, but I changed it. I now have it set to crouch hold for my left control key. And then my crouch toggle, I still have a keybind for that for times where I don't really want to hold the crouch button. When I'm trying to sneak around or something, it would just be set to C. Now for the tactical abilities and the weapon abilities. So coming from Overwatch, the ultimate button was Q. So I stayed stuck with that in my head, so I have it set to Q for the ultimate. Now by default, the tactical ability is Q. I have it set to V. And the reason being, I have a tendency to fat finger the buttons that are close to my spacebar a lot more than I fat finger the Q button. So fat fingering my tactical ability would be a lot less penalizing for me than fat fingering my ultimate, which generally speaking takes a lot longer to charge, and it's happened to me a lot of times. Now a lot of characters, even if you do fat finger your ultimate ability, you still have to physically click on your mouse to either call down Lifeline's care package, throw your Gibby ult, but some characters you just throw it right away, like Octane's jump pad or Wraith's portal. Wraith's portal, as soon as you hit the ultimate ability, it's very difficult to cancel, so I'd rather have my ultimate ability set to a key that I don't fat finger much. Interact pickup, I have it set to E. Then again, I've always had interact set to E on every game I've played, so that is just muscle memory at this point. If you're more comfortable with F, you can go with F. Alternate interact, I have it set to X. The reason being, I know it's kind of awful positioning for X to be used because it's kind of like right underneath your WASD keys, and it's kind of awkward to get to. I mean, I don't really use alternate interact that much. So what alternate interact does is, for example, if you had 2 light weapons which each had a light mag on it, and you wanted to pick up a 3rd extended light mag, you wouldn't be able to pick it up. You'd have to use the alternate interact key to actually pick it up. But that seldom happens in game. Unless I'm bringing something to my friend who is far on the map or a little bit further up, he'd tell me, you want to bring me that mag instead of me going back, then you can just press the X key and actually physically look at your keyboard if you're not sure, but you're not really going to be using this key a whole lot during combat situations. Inventory, I have it set to toggle. I don't like holding down my inventory key, so it's tab. You can I don't know why I have I here, but anyways, I have it set to tab. Map, toggle, I have it set to M. I have a pretty short keyboard and I have long fingers, so hitting M is actually a very small movement for my thumb button to open the map. But if you have maybe smaller hands or something, you might want to, you know, bring that key closer towards your reachable thumb area. Attack, obviously, firing your weapon is the left click on your mouse, unless you're a lefty. Toggle fire mode, I have this set to B, so right next to my tactical ability. So this allows you to switch fire mode on burst fire weapons or anything of the sorts, like an R301. You can put it on single fire if you didn't know. Aim down sight. So I have it set to toggle. The reason being, I hate having to hold down my aim down sight button because I feel like it hinders my aim more than anything else. So what I mean by this is having to hold down your right click button, I feel like puts pressure on your mouse, and it's just not comfortable for me to have it set to hold. So I much rather have it set to toggle, where I just hit the button and then I can easily control my mouse and hold down the fire button if I need to, or tap fire or anything like that. And it's just in muscle memory again at this point. I know when to unscope, and you know, stuff like sprinting makes you unscope. So at that point, it's pretty much personal preference. Melee. So melee, I have it set to T. Again, I have pretty large hands and long fingers, so T is really easy to reach for me. If you have maybe shorter fingers, I used to have it set to middle mouse button, but I found that I ended up clicking the middle mouse button a little bit too much to my liking, so I got rid of that. Reload are pretty standard. Cycle weapons, so I have it set to mouse 4, albeit I don't use this that much, so I might eventually change it. And I also have it set to the scroll wheel, which I believe is by default. So moving on to the equipment. So equip weapon 1 is number 1, 2 is your second weapon in slot. Holster weapon would be to put away your weapon, so I have it set to an easy to reach key. Equip grenade is 5, and use selected health item is number 4. Now I don't really use any of these other keys here for, you know, using a medkit, shield cell, shield battery, phoenix kit. The reason being, these keys are far too far from my fingers to actually use without me having to take my fingers off of the WSD keys, which in first-person shooter games, you want to limit the amount of times that you don't have your fingers on the movement keys, which is the reason why I just have the use selected health item to 4, and I just select which health item I want to use by using the, you know, the wheel like this, instead of having to use each individual key. Character utility action. So what this would do is, if you're playing Gibraltar, for example, this would toggle and untoggle your arm shield. And for example, Loba here, I play Loba a lot. It would, you know, retract, collapse the black market like this. So since I don't play Gibraltar a lot, I didn't really change this. I still kept it to H. It's still pretty close for me to reach, and seeing as I don't really need it all that often, except when breaking down a black market, I just kept it at that. If you're playing Gibby, you might want to put it to a thumb button, because you might want to toggle on and off your shield a lot more. So yeah, inspect weapon. I mean, this is just to look at your gun straight. so I just have it set to N. As for communication, so to open the quip wheel and thank you, I have it set to middle mouse click. For ping, I have it set to a thumb button. So as you can see here, it makes it very easy to ping, and you still have the context-based wheel here that you can pick what you want to use for communication. So I just find it really easy to have it set on the mouse button. So I'm just looking somewhere and I just ping where I want to go. So very, very easy to access and very easy to, you know, communicate information with your team as fast as you can. As for ping enemy, so you can ping enemies by double tapping your communication button, but I also have it set to F. The reason being, sometimes when you're in a stressful situation, you kind of like fumble on your keys or stuff like that. You don't want to be like pinging all over the place, and I want to ping an enemy but it's not working, so I just have it set to F where I can spam it a couple times just to give my teammates the location of an enemy really quick. So F is just my really easy and like quick key to press when I see an enemy. Just ping it and that's it, instead of having to double tap, which in my opinion is a lot slower. And then push to talk, I have it set to Alt. Generally speaking, I play with friends, and you know, the communication system in Apex Legends is so good that you could forego voice chat altogether, but Alt I think is a good alternative. Depending on the layout of your keyboard, mine is pretty easy to access right next to the space bar. I can just use my thumb to press it, so that's great. And then we have the message team, so if you want to type in chat, all you do is enter. But you know, then again, when you're playing, chances are you're probably not going to be typing in chat when you're in the middle of combat. So if you do want to type, it's more often than not when you're in a more slow, you know, time of the game. So that would be it for the settings and key bindings. Again, this is for a default QWERTY keyboard. You know, your mileage may vary depending on if you have a custom keyboard, if you have a special type of keyboard like an QWERTY keyboard or something of the type. But these are my key bindings, and I gave you all the reasons why I have each key set to what and how my gameplay settings are. So I hope this guide helped you. It's much more updated than my previous guide, and I know I might make another version in the future if I decide to change some more keys. But that'll do it for today's video. I'm going to make another guide soon talking about mouse sensitivity, because I think that should be a video in of itself because of the you know, scope and depth that is required to, you know, actually dial in your mouse sensitivity. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. Did this video help you out? I hope it did. And if you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.